Wait to see it. Okay. All right, so we're on. All right, good evening. I'm Michelle Rehill. I am the chairperson of the Northborough Library Board of Trustees. I call this meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. I will now read the governor's advisory regarding remote meetings. The open meeting of the Library Board of Trustees is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on March 29th, 2023. Excuse me. All members of the Library Board of Trustees are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows Library Board of Trustees to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. I will now conduct attendance. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Brittany Burns.
Brittany Burns here.
Mitch Cohen.
Mitch Cohen, hello.
Pat Fonts.
Pat Fonts here.
Jim Hogan.
Jim Hogan here.
Jocelyn McKelney.
Jocelyn McKelney here.
Beth Thomas.
Beth Thomas here.
Richard Tucker.
Richard Tucker here.
And I, Michelle Rehill, am here. We also have Library Director Jen Bruno with us and Assistant Library Director Caitlin Stacy. And our featured performer tonight is Maura Didi, who is from Local Librarian Consulting. So, having gone through all of that, Maura, I'm going to turn it over to you to do your presentation.
Great. Well, thank you. And thank you for having me this evening at your board meeting and taking up some of your precious time to give you an overview of where we've been in this project and to get your input and feedback about where we've been so far and doing some strategic thinking and getting your input about the aspirations for the community. So I thought what I would do is just briefly introduce myself. So my name's Maura Didi. I am the founder and principal of Local Librarian Consulting. So we work with libraries and organizations on a variety of things, including strategic planning, evaluation, and assessment. I approach my work, I have through like collaborative, strategic, and joyful are really my kind of guiding principles in terms of work. And the collaborative really, I think, connects to being local. So as a librarian, as a professional, I come with a skill set that I've developed over 17 years in the field. However, my work with libraries and organizations is really custom to what you're trying to think about and pursue and to match the things we learn and already know and things we already know and then learn about your community. So it's really relying on the local expertise of community members, of stakeholders, of people who work at the library, people who serve on the board, trustees, people who serve on the Friends Board. So all of these folks, you bring your local expertise, which is so important to this project. So without that local expertise, the more local input we get, the richer a project will be. And throughout the process, through the community engagement pieces, really rely on your input to help shape the plan in terms of the words and phrases and concepts that we use. A little bit about me is that I have had a long career in libraries. I've worked in public libraries in a variety of capacities. And then most recently, I worked at NBLC, the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, as their library advisory specialist, where I focused on governance and legal topics with trustees, directors, and friends. Maybe some of you might remember some of my name in your inbox with emails and some of the programs and services that I provided there. So hopefully that gives you a little bit about my background and my approach to my work as a consultant working with Northborough. So today what we're going to do is give you an overview of the project. So talking a little bit, Jen will start with giving us a little bit of the background of how I came to be brought on as a consultant working with Jen and Caitlin on this project. And then we'll talk about some of the community engagement themes that have come up through the survey and the focus groups and interviews that we did on site. And then we'll have an opportunity for some conversation. And I believe that Jen had sent to you all the survey analysis in advance and the questions. So I'm happy when throughout this we can have engagement on those on what you've already read. So why don't we start with project overview? Jen, do you want to start with sort of how this came to be?
Yes, thank you, Maura. Just as a brief recap, of course, it all goes back to COVID, right? I vaguely remember interviewing with you all on Zoom and talking a lot about community partnerships and how we can strengthen the library's position in the community, but also find new and exciting ways to meet the needs of the community and identify what those needs are. Through COVID, those needs obviously were upended, and new needs were sort of emerging. That as we were sort of pulling out of COVID, I was asked by the town administrator at the time to co-chair or co-facilitate a working group of department heads that we named Be Well Northborough. And that started as an ARPA-funded project so that we could get together and do some programming and some events related to sort of bringing the community back out of the pandemic and sort of addressing some of those mental health and wellness needs. When we started to get into that work, we realized this is a really big project and it's going to be ongoing. And I think everybody kind of started to get the sense that mental health and wellness are going to be a topic of conversation and an emerging or a major need in our community and in a lot of different communities maybe for the foreseeable future. Coming out of COVID, there was a lot of long-term things that came up and a lot of emerging needs. So as the Be Well project sort of started to wrap up and we decided to, we talked about next steps. Throughout that process, the library I've been listening to my department heads, to people that were at some of these events, and just realizing there's just so much work that could be done around health and wellness. And I started to think of different ways that we could start to infuse those needs into what we are already doing as a library, because as a library, obviously we're already addressing literacy, health literacy, community engagement, togetherness, and some of these topics, but could we be more mindful with it? Are there other ways to do it? And how would we do it with the staff that we have and the resources that we have? And how can we leverage some of these partnerships that we've developed through Be Well and sort of amplify the work of others and develop a really good network of communications so that if somebody has a complex need that can kind of facilitate through all the different departments. And often those start with the library. We were getting a lot of, they start off as basic sort of reference questions or normal conversations. And then through talking to people in the course of our work, we were identifying some of these bigger needs that we're not necessarily, as librarians, the ones to solve those problems. But how can we sort of match people better with the information that they do need, even if they're not exactly sure what that need is, right? So we reached out and put in an ARPA request for a health and wellness consultant to help us sort of figure out what our plan is going to be for the next couple of years. We were generously given the ARPA funding for the project. I put out a request for quotes. I did get 3 different consultants. Maura was one of them. And having conversations with all 3, what I really liked about Maura was a combination of her background and experience, but also she really, really understood the project from the beginning. She was right on board, I think, able to take my sort of scattered thoughts and put them into something that sounded really, really articulate, which isn't really my strength. So so once we started working together, we put out a survey. We've been having close conversations with about some of the work that's already been done by the Metro West and some of the other surveys that have been done about health and wellness, so that we're not duplicating work, and how we can use that data to inform library specific, like what is our role? What are the things we should focus on? What are the things that people need from the library within sort of the framework of our existing vision statement and strategic goals? So that sort of brings us to where we are today.
Great. Thank you, Jen. And I think that's a great segue, because one of the things I wanted to share was kind of contextualizing this work within the framework of your current strategic plan and what you have as a vision and mission statement. So your vision statement, sort of the aspirational idea of when you achieve the work of your strategic plan, and then your mission statement talking about how you're going about doing this work. And I think that you're in this statement talking about the importance of members of the community learning and discovering, enriching their lives, furthering their personal goals, and engage with others in a comfortable environment. And these things that we learned through the background research and as well as the community engagement pieces really are connected to the work of the mission of the library. And then also, so you're in your current plan, which goes through the next fiscal year. These strategic goals really struck me as being related to the work that this health and wellness plan is doing to empower the community, by connecting people and sharing ideas, the collaboration, which I think is really reflected in the Be Well working group. It's a group that I had an opportunity to meet when I was on site and could really get a sense of how strong the working relationship was between all of those municipal leaders on this project. Educating and inspiring. This is really the core of library services, offering materials and resources to encourage learning, but also empathy, and the development of new ideas. And that's, I hope, through this project, we will have the development of new ideas. And then welcoming spaces, ensuring that our spaces are accessible and safe and respectful for everyone. Is this a place where people can come to, that they feel safe and comfortable asking for health and wellness resources, which can be very vulnerable and private? And is it a place where they're also feeling that the information they're receiving is trustworthy and that they can count on what they're receiving, and that they're also being seen in their humanity? So I think Jen gave a great overview, right, of where we've been, where she's been, right, or you as a community in this process, and really how it fits into the work that the library is already engaged with. Um, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the survey data, which you had an opportunity to review. So some of the things, so just to kind of help inform the work of where we've been so far. So when we started working with Jen, had some background meetings about where the project has been, what were some of the goals that she and Caitlin had for the project. And then I reviewed three different key documents from the Metro West Community Health Assessment, the Town of Northborough Family Youth and Services Department review, and then the Northborough Health and Human Services Strategic Assessment, excuse me. So this helped me give a lot of background info, I think especially the Metro West Health Assessment to what some of the needs are of the community. And then the Health and Human Services and Family and Youth Services, thinking about what those departments are doing to serve that need. And throughout this project, it's really thinking about the lens of where the library or where the library can have influence and when it's related to its mission and have some impact on these health and wellness needs. There's a lot of big systemic issues related to health and wellness that are really outside of the library's purview. So what we're trying to focus on is where there are issues that the library can have an impact on. So the review of these documents led to the survey, which I hope you all had an opportunity to take and review that analysis, and that came through with that report that you had a chance to look at. So we had 191 responses in total, and that met our goal. And we promoted that through the newsletter, social media, directly with the Be Well Northborough stakeholders, and asking them to share that with their networks as well. So just gonna move my screen here for a second. There we go. Sorry, I'm just rearranging my note screens. So the key themes in this were really about community demand for health and wellness programs. So we saw residents expressing a strong interest in this. And this interest really spanned across the age groups, which said to me that there's emphasis on a well-rounded approach to health and wellness programming. And as one survey respondent said, it's not just one thing people are looking for. And especially for physical activities and fitness, that really speaks to the mental health and physical health connection as well, and also opportunities to engage with other people in the community. Health and mental health really came across as a important topic in both the survey and the community engagement pieces we did on site in November. This was a top concern in the Metro West survey. Not surprising, that was really reflected in folks who had taken the library survey as well. The survey also highlighted some accessibility and engagement challenges. So thinking about programs that might be developed or targeted to folks at certain sort of seasons of their life, if you will. So we did ask about age, and we used that to take a look at how responses may have varied based on where the age folks were at. So we saw a distinct age-related preference for things like parenting programs for that 34 to 45-year-old group, which makes sense. Those are folks who are in the midst of child rearing, right? With small, maybe small children or up into like middle school or even high school. So there's a need for that among that age group. And then for folks who were 55 and older, there was a high demand for online resources. So maybe reflecting a little bit about understanding digital literacy and information literacy about what they can find online as well. And then evergreen is just like marketing challenging, getting the right information at the right time in front of people. And connecting to literacy, really, it there's all types of literacy, and this is really beyond the traditional definition. So the survey wanted to look at different types of literacy, like health, financial, and housing literacy. Um, and we found that housing literacy really became or financial literacy kind of related to housing literacy of understanding um, those documents related to that. People reported that they were only slightly confident in that. And that was, I think in the survey I talk about how that's particularly higher for, I think it was folks in their 20s. So that revealed itself as a need through the survey. And then community connection and social isolation um, emerged as a theme as well. And we know that the library plays a crucial role in facilitating community connections. So respondents had highlighted the value of library programs and town events, and even informal social interactions can foster belonging. When the survey was out, Apple Fest had happened or was happening. And there was a lot of responses about how folks found that kind of community event to be a time where they felt they were belonged and felt connected into the community. Um, some of the responses in the survey expressed a need for inclusive programming, especially for folks without children or older adults who were transitioning out of family-focused activities. Um, One person said that there's lots of resources and support for parents, but none for people without children. It's very isolating and lonely. And those feelings of isolation and lonely, we know, are national issues among folks in different age groups as well. So of course that we would see that trend also in Northborough as well. So I think that, that feeling of wanting to be connected to the community as a way of combating social isolation would come through in the survey. And then community-centered collaboration, right? This work doesn't take place in a vacuum. Um, and the library has its strengths and the activities that are within its mission, and the importance of partnerships with the Health and Human Services Department, with the other municipal departments and other nonprofit organizations, and helping achieve the goals that are yet to be determined, but will be in this plan. But really, those community connections will be critical for success. So after the survey, we did that analysis, and that analysis helped informed the community engagement that we did on site. So we held 3 focus groups, which were attended by 20 people, which included library friends, community members, as well as municipal staff. And then we had 4 interviews with municipal stakeholders and leaders, and there were 2 staff engagement sessions. And again, the themes out of that really became around mental health and how critical that is, and the impact of mental health on all aspects of a person's life. Literacy, all types of literacy. We had questions in our focus groups and interviews that really were asking about, what people think is important around, literacy and the skills that are needed to access health information and understand it, especially when so much is available online and is a starting point for a lot of folks looking for information, myself included. And just thinking about that, there's like just basic literacy, being able to read and understand what you're reading and the information as it's being presented. Information literacy, like who's sharing that information, digital literacy, being able to navigate a website, use a computer, understand sort of how the technology works. So all that literacy is layered in being able to access and understand health and wellness information and the importance of community connections and wanting to feel a part of the community and belonging. So I think I'll pause here and see if there's any questions about the survey and community engagement before we get into your opportunity to answer some questions and share your feedback.
No questions from anyone? Okay.
Oh, I think Mitch has his physical hand raised.
Yes. Sorry, I'm not in practice of using my electronic hand. Just a general question. I think the response was pretty good to the survey. I just want to confirm that you see it as statistically significant enough to, make decisions based upon. I know it's hard to get survey responses based upon, all sorts of different things. And the surveys we run in town, we see all sorts of range, and this is in the middle, I would say, of that range.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. Of course, you want to have more engagement. I think what we heard from folks sort of echoed some of the surveys before. And then looking in towards the sort of next steps with this will be building the plan, and we'll have another opportunity for like a town hall that will be the library could will advertise, right, to the community, to the public, to say like, here's what we've heard, here's what we've been crafting. Did we hear you correctly as well? So we'll have another opportunity for community engagement as well through the process, just to make sure that we are getting this right and being reflective of what we've heard in the community.
Thank you.
To build off of that too, I wonder if some outreach could be done. One thing I noticed is that the racial and ethnic background of the respondents is not reflective of the community either. So I think to make sure we're taking like a culturally sensitive approach, that probably being really intentional about that is important as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Brittany.
I just had another thought. I feel bad for not bringing this up earlier, or maybe sending Jen an email. But before Jen joined, so she wouldn't remember this, we did some surveys. I think it was just before COVID, and it was not for this purpose. It was for different purposes of may have been related to fundraising or it was building use. I don't know if Jen, if you found those, if you ran across those and gave those to Maura, I don't know if there's anything interesting that might be helpful in any of that. I could dig it up if you don't know where it is.
It's actually filed with our current strategic plan because I believe
Okay.
that was part of, like I think there were two surveys. There was one that was done with a fundraising consultant.
Yeah.
And there was one that was done with Maxine, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
The second consultant, yeah.
Mm.
They're both attached to the strategic plan, and I think a lot of it was because it was pre-COVID. It might be interesting actually to go back and see what.
I would not want to make decisions now based upon that. What brought it up is Brittany's comment about being reflective of the community. That was something that we noticed out of that earlier survey, that we also recognized we were not getting input and participation in library services and library programs that we felt were representative, and was something that we wanted to look at. And then the pandemic hit and we had other priorities.
Yeah, I think it brings up an interesting question about where we might not be advertising. So this was sent out, the police, fire, health and human services, the town clerk sent it out, like, we sent it out through all our sort of quote, known
Yeah.
channels. So I wonder, and maybe that's a bigger conversation to have at another point, but like what we're not reaching or who we're not reaching with some of the town channels, and how we could do better with that. So it's a really interesting point. Brittany, you might hear more from me later if I could pick your brain about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and Jen and I, we unfortunately had zero people show up to one of our focus groups. So we talked about pivoting that to maybe doing one online after the holidays. So there will be another focus group opportunity that will be virtual. So when Jen picks your brain, Brittany, for maybe some avenues, we can hopefully be a little bit more strategic in our recruitment to ensure that our invitations and letting folks know about that opportunity hopefully can help reflect some of those demographics in the for Northborough.
Mitch, do you think that the since the Diversity, Equity, Inclusiveness, and Belonging Committee is meeting again, that they might want to have a conversation with me at some point about communications and making
It's
sure that we're reaching all demographics of people when
it's very possible. I mean,
yeah.
it's certainly top of mind having that meeting just taken place an hour ago.
Yeah.
That you know, whether that committee as in a formal sense participates or even just members of that committee may have some ideas as to how to reach more people, both for the survey and just for library communication and municipal communication as a whole.
Yeah. Because I know there's a lot of surveys that are either being planned or have gone out recently. So I wonder if it's a trend that everybody's seeing. Yeah, thank you guys.
No other hands up, so are we ready to move on?
Think so. So this will give me an opportunity to rest my voice while I listen to you all. I'm just going to bring you through a series of 6 questions. And some of these are similar in content-wise to what we had in our interviews and focus groups. And this is just an opportunity for me to hear you as experts in this community, in the library's mission, relationships you have with other community organizations and folks in the community. So we'll get started with what is your vision for the library's role in supporting the overall well-being of the community? And Michelle, I'm not sure if you have a way you want to think about managing conversation or.
I was just, I have to claim not being an expert in this Zoom thing workplace because I don't see everybody and I
Oh,
don't,
okay. Well, I see
I'm,
everybody. I have a lot of experience facilitating. So I'm happy to do that as well. But I more to the point, if I just want to make sure we hear from everyone's voices, have an opportunity to be heard this evening. So I will let, does anybody like to go first, to share a little bit about your vision?
I'm going to raise my real hand.
Okay, hi, Patricia.
Yeah. I see the library's role in supporting the overall well-being is if someone has a question, someone doesn't needs information about anything local. My vision would be the first place they would think about going would be the library. And that was the one thing I know. My husband and I moved into town in the middle of COVID and everything was dead. And we had to scrounge for information and we're hoping that our neighbors could help us find things. And whether it be how the town was working, trash pickup. I know those sound trivial, but when someone is really in need of information, I would like them to think that the library is the first place that they could check.
Yeah.
I could raise my real or my virtual. I don't know what the preference is. Hold hands. I think for me, supporting is the key word in this, and not trying to be all things, and recognizing the capacity of the library team who already does so much. And so for me, I think, when I think about it, it's almost like a directory and a wayfinding. Like I think it's important, and this I think aligns with what Pat was saying. To know what resources are available and to where to point people, and to have those connections established, but not necessarily be the ones trying to provide the service.
Agree, yeah.
Yeah, I put in,
Ed, Richard?
I'm raising my hand.
Yeah, I
Okay.
see you, Richard. Hi.
I really agree. I think there's a lot of things that we could do and, with workshops, outreach programs and all. I think the most important thing for a library is to have the information that people need. Pat said this and Beth just echoed it. When you have a question, the library is a place to get your answer. So I think before we, do outreach or anything, we need to really be stocked with information about well-being and, good life choices and things like that. Because I think when people think, well, what does the library have to offer me in these areas? They'll think information first. They won't think necessarily a program or a retreat or anything like that, which, could be a very good thing to have. But the basis for our role in this is be the party with the information that the community needs to make good choices.
Brittany, were you up first? Your hand is, I see your hand up, but I don't know if Brittany went before Jocelyn.
Brittany's hand was up first.
Okay.
I'm going to take a little bit of a controversial stand here for a library trustee member, and that is that I actually think the library is so much more than information. That is not the first place I would go if I were looking for information on the town. I think so many people rely on town websites and internet resources and things like that, that I actually see the library as a place for people to break free of that isolation, right? And interact with other human beings. I see that as a really important kind of community function. And I also see the library as a place, one of the only places really in town that's for everyone in all stages of life, right? There's lots of places for people with children, schools, there's the senior center, but there's not a lot that really any places that are for everyone. And so I think for me, when we think about well-being of the community, it's really a place to give people a sense of community in a world where we can find things on our own now, right? And be very isolated. So for me, that like physical space and connection is actually the most important part of what the library is doing now.
Thank you.
So I want to say I agree with you, Brittany, and now Jocelyn, I think you're up.
Thanks. I actually love that position, Brittany. I think that what I have to say probably echoes what almost everyone has said at this point. Is I pulled out the word supporting, in that it's a place where we're not, so many people live their lives in a social media bubble where they're just hearing the things that they want to hear, where the library could be a place to make sure that all information is elevated, that people can break free of the chains of news yelling at them and headlines yelling at them, and take the time in a quiet space to learn for themselves information that they might want to know, and to do it in a place, to your point, Brittany, where other people are also there trying to do the same thing. It's a place where learning becomes the common thread for folks to come together, whether it's learning who your neighbors are, learning what programs the library has, or just learning a new skill. You know, that's what I see as a strong community, is a community with folks who want to do better every day. And I see the library as being a place to support that.
Anybody else? No other hands up? Does anybody want else to have anything to say about this particular question or topic?
Oh, I think Beth has her hand raised.
Yeah, just real quick. You know, I think building on the kind of things that the library already does, in that, like, providing the space for, and that's kind of what I meant is, you know, you have CPR classes and you have all of these other things that bring people in to teach them, and it's not relying on the librarians to provide the knowledge, but it's giving the space for that. And that, just to kind of clarify what I was trying to get at.
Thank you.
You're not asking Jen to teach CPR classes now, right?
I mean, you know, if they want, but
No, that's a good thing. You don't want me to. Don't rely on me for medical advice or training.
I like that.
If I may, I might just make a suggestion to maybe, I'm gonna stop the share of my screen so maybe folks can see each other. I feel like that might be a little bit more conducive to conversation. And then what I can do is I can put the questions into the chat so you can read them. I mean, you already have them, but read them as well. So I'm just gonna do that.
Thank you for accommodating my lack of.
Oh, no, of course, as we were doing it, I was like, this feels like a conversation now. Like, slides are done, now we're having conversation. Okay, so our next question is, what are some of the biggest health or wellness challenges affecting community members in Northborough? Is there a chat here?
Pat,
Sorry, I was just looking and I think that the chat is disabled because it's a public
Okay,
meeting.
okay, well, all right, you all have questions. I
yeah,
just wanted to.
we have our questions, so.
Okay, yeah.
All right, Pat.
Okay, this may not sound related, but lack of transportation. This town has no public transportation at all.
We might soon.
I hope and pray.
We're
But that's been it's a real issue.
Yeah. It would be a huge distraction for me to describe that, but Pat, I'll send you an email with some information.
Thank you.
Jocelyn?
Isolation and loneliness, I think, is a big one. I know we talk about mental health being a big focus for a lot of folks, especially since COVID. And I think the isolation we all went into during COVID because we had to, I feel like that's something that's continued, where a lot of what we do is virtual, which has its benefits, but also can be isolating. And I think that there's still a distance that people might feel from each other that I see as a challenge we still need to overcome.
At the same time, we've done a remarkable job in Northborough, and we continue to do this in developing public spaces. We have a remarkable system of trails that I walk on frequently and have for many, many years. We have the new common, and we have the new dog walking park. So I think we're creating places that are not on the internet, not virtual, but that are real places where people can go. And even if we had another, God forbid, another COVID, I think we've learned that there are a lot of times when we can just get outside, be outside, and be with each other. And so I think we've got some real substantial resources here in town that people are taking advantage of them. I see people out on the hiking trails, walking their dogs and just out there all the time. So I think that's a real plus and a very positive thing for us.
I hope those dogs are leashed.
They are, the dogs are remarkably well behaved. All the dogs that I encounter. And I think when the new dog park is opened, you're going to find that two things are going to happen. I've watched dog parks in other places, and two things are going to happen. One is the dogs are going to socialize, and they do in amazing ways. Wonderful to watch them getting along with each other. And by the way, different breeds getting along very well with each other. And then you're going to see the humans, and they will start talking to each other. The dog owners, they'll talk to each other about their dogs and then about something else. So I think the dog park is I think it was a great idea. I'm glad to see it going forward, and I think it's going to be a very, very a great place for people.
Thank you, Jim. That if I just may, what your comments sort of reminded me of one of the staff sessions we had and talking about how pets can have such an impact on health and wellness and on mental health and some of we did some just brainstorming around programs and ideas, and one was about maybe there's something there about caring for pets and caring for animals, right? And it makes me think about how, right, there's something the library can do in terms of programming, bringing in experts, connecting people, but how that also connects to the other assets in the community, like walking trails, a dog park, right? So it's all, within the community, everybody pulling their strengths to address some of these issues. So thank you for that. Brittany?
So this I'll answer comes both from my experience that I teach high school and have a teenage daughter. And I do think one thing that Northborough lacks a little bit is a teen scene, so to speak. I think that targeting the teenagers through library programming is a huge opportunity. And I know, Jen, I'm sure you guys have talked a lot about how hard it is. I do programming for teenagers all the time and how hard it can be to get them out. But, we see, like every high school in the country, we've seen increased rates of anxiety and mental health issues with teenagers. And honestly, the stresses of growing up today are hard. There's a lot on these kids' plates. And a lot going on in the world that is so out of their control in many ways. And so I do think targeting that group in particular is a real opportunity. And that's something that impacts not just teenagers, but also their families. And, can have trickle down effects as well to the community. So.
I was related to that. One of the things I thought about in this category was, is there some way how, I don't know how you do it, but I was thinking about the teens specifically, that I think that they probably have so many questions, issues, concerns, but they don't think of the library as a place to go for it, but I also don't know that they would feel comfortable. So I think that one of the biggest challenges is to make the kind of information that teens might be looking for, or the support that they might be looking for, and make it feel very private to them, confidential. And I don't know how to do that, obviously, or I'd be telling you what I think would happen or could happen. I just think that they're very hesitant to bring some of those things forward. So I think that's a challenge for the library, because it's a challenge for these kids to navigate that stuff. Anybody else? Oh, Richard, do you have your hand up? I can't. Oh, no, never mind. See, some random thing on my screen. Do we feel like we're ready to move on?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. So our next question is, what do you believe are the library's core strengths in serving the community, and how can we build on those?
Okay, I'll jump in on that. I think that we live in a world in which people are exposed constantly to misinformation and, in fact, malinformation. And I think one of the core strengths of a library is when we're dealing with people who come in with questions about health issues or actually any other issues. One of the most important things we can do is try to teach them how to discriminate among the sources of information, so that when they need information on a specific topic, they have at least a rough idea about where to go to get legitimate information. If you're worried about cancer, you don't want to go to Joe Blow's cancer website. You want to go to the American Cancer Society, the AMA, or something like that. So if we can help people learn to discriminate among the sources of information that are out there, because there's so much junk that they're barraged by from their so-called social media experiences, that they don't really know where to go and they get confused. And if we could just help them with that, so that they go to places where they get legitimate, adjudicated, real information, I think we will have done a great service.
I'd like to say that I think one of the library's core strengths is the staff that we have. I don't know anyone who has ever gone and not like anyone who goes to the library will tell you, oh, I love the staff, they're so great. I think how do we make it better is get people in the door. But I think that really the staff is the strength, because there's someone for everyone. They will get in there. Once they're in there, the library staff will not stop until they help someone, until they find what the person needs, get them to the right place. So, core strength, library staff.
Michelle, building off on that, so as the library staff has a core strength, how can we build upon and strengthen that resource? Not to say like it's already a well-performing machine, but how can we build upon that?
That was like my feeling is that we need to, or we should get, find a way to get more people in the door, because once they get there, the staff is there to provide all kinds of support and help and information. And again, like I can tell you what the core strength is. I don't know how to make it better, except, oh, maybe more staff. Oh, maybe have the library be open longer hours. So, and I do think perhaps if we could get back Thursday night hours, that might be very helpful. You know, that's a way to build on this. So, but that's off the top of my head. I don't have ideas. I just know what's the good thing.
That's fair. Thank you. I think we have Beth and then Mitch.
Oh yeah, I don't even see those little hands pop up.
It's all right. I think, at a really practical, fundamental level, the library as space is really important. As a space that you can be for 5 minutes or 5 hours and nobody's expecting anything of you. I know, with my nephew, some of you have met him at the library. If there's a wait at C'est La Vie, we go to the library. Like if there's, any downtime between his activities, we pop into the library, and it's just a great place to be able to go. And for me as a classic millennial, it's where I do all my printing because I don't have that resource at home, and I know a lot of other people don't too. So I mean, really just on a very practical, basic, fundamental level, those kind of resources are really invaluable on a personal level.
Mitch?
Thanks. The collection is probably the item that draws people into almost any library the most. It's certainly the traditional old-fashioned way of thinking about libraries as just shelves of books is old-fashioned, but that is a big, it's a huge part of what we do. And using that and maximizing that and talking about that brings a lot of people in where they can then be exposed to the other wonderful things that we do. So I didn't want to forget about that. We probably spend the least amount of time at our meetings talking about the collection because it's a good collection and we have professionals that do it. I don't think that, we need to be involved in the idiosyncrasies of that collection. But I just didn't want to leave that off the table as being something that's critical to our mission.
Any other little hands hiding that I don't see up there?
No, I don't see any, Michelle.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any other thoughts about this question? If not, we can move on.
So great. Our next question is, what partnerships or community relationships do you see as critical to achieving our long-term goals?
I think the relationships that have already been established through the initial Be Well program are very important, and I think that they still exist. So cooperating with and working together with the senior center and family and youth services or department. I'm not sure what we're up to these days. Department of Health and Human Services and all that. Continuing to work with those groups are really what we need to do. I don't know that there are any other organizations in town, but those are the ones that right away popped into my head when I read that. It's like, oh, we already have those, don't we?
Um,
I mean,
Brittany?
oh, sorry, Brittany.
Sure. I do think there are some opportunities to strengthen relationships with the school district. I know there's probably more connection with the elementary schools than the middle school and the high school. And I think outside of what we normally think, I'm not just talking about like school libraries and books. I think there's actually a lot of opportunities for the schools to think about using the library space and sharing that, space, and maybe partnering on some of these workshops and things like that. We have a lot of resources that I think we probably could use together and be stronger. And right now, a lot of them are kind of separate. My dog agrees also.
All right, Mitch?
Two thoughts. One, are churches. That churches are places in town. We have a lot of great churches and religious organizations in Northborough that I don't think we reach out to, or if we do, I'm just not aware of it. Not to involve ourselves with their religions, but as a way of making, they are parts of the community. And if we are going to be central to the community, I think that's, one set of organizations we can reach out to, and another completely different set of businesses. I know, we've partnered with some businesses on a few things here and there. I think there's a lot more opportunity for different reasons. Maybe it's to solicit donations for things or sponsorships for events, or maybe it's for putting a few books at the, in the waiting area of a restaurant that gets busy. Just, a big aspect of the community. And a lot of the businesses in town are not owned by Northborough residents, but those owners and those managers are very interested in the Northborough community.
Which raises an interesting point with the churches, because I think that and a point that was brought up before, maybe by Brittany, but the teens are always anxious to get involved in, always anxious to get involved in outreach kinds of things when they're doing, gathering food for people who, who need that, or dealing with the homeless or whatever. But the teens seem to come forward, and they really like to do that kind of thing. And the churches kind of had that as one of their niches, and maybe the library could kind of connect in with that in some way. I don't know, but it's an interesting point.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to step away for a couple of minutes. Can the meeting go on without me? We have Mitch here just in case. I have a little family thing going on. I'll be right
Okay.
back.
Okay. What will I do with all this power? Only kidding. Maura, it's really your function, your meeting.
Well, I just want to see, I don't know if we've heard from Patricia or Richard. Did you have any thoughts that you might want to share about partnerships or strengths?
Well, I think, I have said this at so many meetings when we go over our statistics about the participation in our programming. And I just think the library does a tremendous job in programming. The amount of people that go through the library on any day and then any month for programming is amazing. Numbers of 500 young adult, 500 children and parents. It's great. So I think that's one of the strengths, and I think through that, that's an outreach in and of itself for all that we do. A family comes in and for storybook, and then the mom looks around at the dad, some other things that we have to offer, and they tell somebody else. And I really think that's one of the big strengths of our library. And it's the result of some really fabulous staff, and of course the director that's running these programs.
I see, I like having been working with teenagers and middle schoolers for a very long time. I really like the idea of having I believe we have a teen advisory committee, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, that's always a great way to start. To outreach to teens. I would also like to see, and I don't know if it's that much of a need at this point, not just, the teens from Algonquin, but perhaps folks who have come from elsewhere. Okay. I know Westboro, I don't know how many people, how many immigrants are being housed in Northborough. Okay. I'd love to see us take some of our strength, some of our programming and perhaps do some outreach there. I'm not sure if I'm off topic or not, so bear with me. And reach out to some of these communities too and bring them in. And the more diversity we have, Mitch, to diversity and inclusion, I think the stronger we're going to be for it.
Thank you, Patricia. All right, we're coming up. We have 2 questions left. So one, our penultimate question is, what would success look like for the library in 5 years? What outcomes or changes would you hope to see? Mitch, you're right.
I have a dream, which is to open on Sundays.
I was just gonna say get Thursday hours back. I'm not even looking at Sunday yet.
I think Thursday is a step towards Sunday.
Yeah, no, but building on what Michelle said about once people get in the door, they're gonna love us even more. It's that the success is driving even more beyond the numbers that Richard called out earlier, and the amazing staff that we know that we have and the space that we have that's available to folks is making those things even more available to folks. So hopefully we get my Thursday and then Mitch will get your Sunday.
Interestingly enough, a large number of the hours that we are open, people who are working cannot come in. People who are working can come in the evening and they can come in on the weekends, but 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning when you're working at a job is out of the question.
Mm.
So I think, Sunday, Thursdays, those are great things to shoot for.
Brittany?
I'm going to circle back to something Mitch said earlier too. I definitely agree with Thursdays and Sundays. But in 5 years, I would also love to see a bus stop outside of the library for public transportation that can get all of these kids and people who maybe don't have cars to the library. I actually think it's a really important piece of that bigger plan. I'm a little joking, but also serious that when that happens, that should be a top priority.
I'll send the information that I have from the WRTA on some recent discussions. I'll send that out to the whole committee.
That would be great.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Don't tell us they're sending the green line here.
No, it's baby steps.
Brittany, but I'd like how you connected that to our earlier kind of conversation around like transportation and that's something that really the library doesn't have the capacity or impact or the ability to really impact that. But in a dream, and like, what does success look like, right? Can we think about what it would be to actually have a bus stop in front of the library and what that would mean for access to the library? Does anyone else have any other thoughts about what success might look like for the community when thinking about health and wellness outcomes? Oh, Mitch?
I don't know if it's, I mean, it's certainly indirectly for health and wellness is one of the first things we talked about in this discussion were is our library community reflective of the Northborough community as a whole? And I don't know that factually. My gut feeling is we could do better. And my vision would be doing better. And that might mean um, different language support from staff or some way of dealing with that. A targeted sections of the library for different cultures. Um, you know, reading groups for kids that are a little bit more open to cultures where the parents might be more familiar with the books or the topics. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, just guessing. Not directly health and wellness, but library related.
I
But
would
I-
say wellness for sure.
I was gonna say, I think that it is wellness if we provide more inclusiveness in the library. It's helps people. Again, we always say the library is a safe space for everyone and it's supposed to be a comfortable place for everyone. But how can people be comfortable if they don't feel seen, if they don't see themselves reflected in what's in the library, the programming in the library? So
I think there's also an opportunity maybe to embed the library more in existing community events instead of expecting people to come to the library. You know, there's usually a book sale that accompanies all of these, but that's really a very limited place of engagement. And if there was a different approach, perhaps, to represent these services or, have a tent or a booth, in these spaces where lots of other community partners are also.
Thank you, Beth.
nothing else on this? If not, we will go to the ultimate question.
Ultimate question. Are there emerging trends or challenges that you feel the library should be preparing for now to stay relevant and impactful? Brittany?
I have no idea how you should prepare for this, but I do think that AI is going to really impact the way that people look for information, access information, think about needing resources, and come to use a library. And I think there's a lot of many challenges with that, but I think there are also some opportunities there as well. So that's like kind of one of the first things when I think about just information technology for sure.
Thank you. Jocelyn?
So on the other side of Brittany's point, as our community as a whole ages and folks are more aging in place, is keeping a focus on the seniors in our community and making sure that they continue to feel engaged with the library, with the community as a whole. Again, going to that loneliness and isolation, you're as your peers fall away, you need to find new ones and new spaces for community. And I think that's also something we can look at focusing on.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And hopefully we all have an opportunity to age in place or age in the communities we want to be in, right? So it's sort of like thinking about the life cycle of library patrons.
I don't say much, but can I throw one into this? And just
throw out there that making sure that on the other end, people are able to stay in Northborough affordability wise. And for us, I think that plays out in home buying literacy or financial literacy types of initiatives. So we can't necessarily lower your rent or make the housing market more fair, but just sort of being aware of that trend and making sure that we can provide resources when people need them.
Really glad that you brought that up, because I was thinking about the whole issue of affordability for people in town, but I couldn't figure out like how do we prepare for that? Well, it's not like we can give people money so they can afford to live here or buy a house or pay their rent, whatever. But Jen, you just said it, focus, like on programs that will help them do that, like the financial literacy. And that, I think it was one of the things that was in the big report where they talked about like how to read a not a contract, but how do you read a document that talks about a mortgage or a rental agreement or something like that, so that people really understand that stuff. And I think that's something that we should be preparing for, because it's becoming difficult to afford to live anywhere, it seems. So.
As as a follow-up to that, in the reverse, as the library see trends of people asking more about affordable housing or more about paying utilities or something like that, and you're helping people, also log that and somehow distribute those findings to others in the town that might be responsible for finding other solutions. For example, get a lot of sudden questions and comments about affordable housing from seniors. Mention that to the select board or the town administrator to sort of drive the conversation about finding more affordable housing, because the library is not going to is not going to create affordable housing, but there are others in towns that are responsible for that. So to know what you're running into can help us do our job.
Thank you, Mitch.
Anybody else with comments about this? If not, I turn this back over to you, Mara, to proceed.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you for putting up with my deteriorating voice over this call. So our next steps is I'm just going to take this piece of our community engagement process and add that into our analysis as well. And we'll have another focus group after the holidays, and then we'll start to be building that plan. And when we have a draft of that, we'll go back out to the community to make sure that we're, kind of saying, did we hear you? Are we on the mark here? Is this responding to what we learned as the needs and aspirations through our various pieces of engagement? But if in the meantime you have any thoughts, say you're out walking your dog, sounds like there's a lot of dog families on our call, and you think of something, Jen can provide my contact information, so feel free to send me an email or your thoughts. Would be delighted to hear from you. So thank you so much for your time this evening. I know you probably have a lot of important board business in front of you, so I appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts and hear about where we've been in this project.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mara.
Thank you very much, Mara.
Or I hope your voice gets better.
I think it should be, it'll be fine. I don't have like 10 meetings tomorrow. It's good. It's good.
Rest it up.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna leave, right? I'm leaving. Okay. Well, happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. You too.
I know.
Bye.
Okay. Now it will be almost like a regular meeting for a minute anyway. And thank you all for your thoughtful input to the questions for the survey. I appreciate that. We have to have a vote to accept the closed days and the early closing days for 2025. And that has to be done in the form of a motion. Did everybody got that right? In amongst all the big report, we got the list of the closures. Does anybody have any comments or objections to anything on there? Pretty much what we do every year, right? So if that's the case, if we don't have to discuss anything about it, I would appreciate it if someone would make a motion that we accept the list of the 2025 close days and the early closing days as presented in the December 10th, 2024 Library Trustees meeting packet.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Mitch, was that you happy to make that motion?
I am very happy to make that motion, yes.
Excellent.
And I will second that motion.
Beth is seconding that motion. All right, then we will do the roll call to see how this goes. All those in favor of accepting the motion as presented, Brittany Burns,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch Cohen,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Pat Fonts,
Pat Fonts, aye.
Jim Hogan,
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn McKelney,
Jocelyn McKelney, aye.
Beth Thomas,
Beth Thomas, aye.
Richard Tucker,
Richard Tucker, aye.
and I, Michelle Wehill, also vote in favor of accepting the closures and early closing days. The motion passes in the affirmative unanimously. That felt again, just like the old meetings. Now I believe that we have someone coming in. Lisa Maselli will be joining us to discuss the library signage. You all got that lovely thing probably several times because
You want me
email
to
is,
share my screen and bring up that PDF?
and then I won't be able to see people again. Oh, sure.
I'm
Okay.
sharing my video. I can't see if Lisa is here.
Thought I saw her in the room.
She's joined the meeting, but I don't see a count. Here's Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Oh, that's better. Gonna keep getting this call coming in. I'm like, I don't want a call coming in. Oh, that's you. Are you calling me? Yeah, all right. That's crazy. All righty. Well, look at that. I don't even have to share that. I was gonna hold it up and look at this. It's already on the screen. Hello, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lisa Maselli, and I keep getting a phone call here, so I don't know how to fix that. Would you give me just a minute? I'm gonna go and close this off. I'll be right back, okay? Thank you.
We're all having our issues.
I'm on a call.
Without revealing any details, like my sister, who does not live in Northborough, has been frantically calling my house to see if she could come and stay here tonight. But I have my phone on Do Not Disturb.
Well, oops.
So she finally thought, oh, I can text. Apparently, where she lives, there is a gas leak in her neighborhood, and she needs a
Oh,
place
no.
to sleep
Oh,
tonight.
gosh.
So that was my little family emergency that caused me to have to step away.
All right, sorry about that. Hopefully that'll be fine. Well, so would you like me to just talk about the new street signs?
Please do.
Okay, about June, we started working on this at the Design Review Committee. And we're following the master plan, and it's under ED 1 to 3. And it says explore options for creating a fresh and cohesive identity or brand for the new downtown area, such as unified signage and facades, including wayfinding and marketing materials. Use signage to clarify the boundaries of the new downtown. And the Design Review Committee researched the importance of signage and unity. I'm going to give you a little background, little marketing background here. Business signage plays an important role in the life of any city or town, not only because it supports commerce and the livelihood of individual businesses, but it also has the overall appearance of the city's signage, helps communicate and even define its character. Think about the difference in signage between Boston and Las Vegas, for example, and what that signage says about each of those cities. Just as business signage plays an important role, so does municipal building signage by supporting the identity of a town. Municipal building signs help to connect with your community. So what we did was we had looked at some different shapes, and this was the one that hadn't been used too often by many other towns. As you drive through, you go, oh, I recognize that, or I recognize this. So this is called the sweeping wave. And we then talked about keeping it all the same color or giving some color options. And some of the color options were to keep the town of Northborough, the seal, and the street in black, but being able to give you an option of the building and a matching border around it. In your case, of course, you have an entrance on Patty Lane, and lots of times people see the building but don't necessarily know how to get in. So your option would have a little hook and eye situation where you could have a little sign underneath that would say entrance on Patty Lane or parking entrance on Patty Lane, whichever you prefer. And that would also match the color of whatever the library letters were. I think you talked about using the dark green that you have in your logo, and I think it looks wonderful. I also gave you an option of seeing the library itself spread a little bit more in between the letters, which is the third one down. I think I do like that one the best because it balances the signage. And then you would ask to see what free library looked like. Free library, unfortunately, you see the word free and you almost stop reading. It's kind of a psychological thing, but again, that's certainly up to you. The materials, as I put in the little flyer, it's a wood-like HDU substrate. It won't crack. It doesn't react to the weather like wood would. But it has quite a long shelf life. I talked to the sign maker, and he said it was a good 20-year, 25-year sign anyway. You may have to go back and repaint sometimes with the years of fading. It depends on how much the sunlight's on the signs. But we would have granite. Oh, I have a new Zoom. We would have granite posts, and we were talking about probably 3 feet off the ground so you could put some flowers, put a little better flowers on it. And we already have one of his signs, which is at the Peasley School, and you can see it in the lower right. It's a beautiful sign. It really was much different than what we had before there. And the seal to the right of that is the seal that I've been given for the artwork. Now, you would know better if there was any changes to be made to that. So what we're doing is we're coming to the library. We're also coming to the police department to see if they're interested. And we'd be making 3 right now with ARPA funds, would be the police, the library, and with the town offices. I believe the police would be blue and the town offices would be maroon. If you have any questions.
I do. Thank you for this, Lisa. How would the sign be placed in front of the library? Will it be so that if someone's driving by, that they would be reading the sign as they drove by, or would the sign be sideward so that it would be seen on both sides?
Well, that is your choice because of the depth that you have, which is why I gave you two choices. If you did one flat where you see it, like in front of the building, you put the arrow that shows Patty Lane in the direction Patty Lane goes. If you did it this way, perpendicular, you would just have the message and the sides would be straight.
Yeah.
I believe that having the perpendicular does give the view from both sides. So when you're coming down the street, you see it. And I think that's probably the preferred one. But again, this was something we've started to get some feel for it and how it's going to present itself. So I think that would be something, again, that the library trustees could decide upon themselves.
I mean, I've had some experience dealing with library signs, and it was a different situation in that we had to deal with the historical commission too, once we got the sign going. But I actually, once we got the sign up, it's a beautiful sign, but it faced the street. And I've actually had people ask me, where's the library? And I said, well, it's over here. And they said, well, we don't see the sign. Well, because they're not, they're not turning their heads to read the sign that's facing the street. So that would be my contribution to experience.
So do you like it with two perpendicular front and back, or do you like it to face with one?
I two would be, yeah.
Say again? I didn't
Two.
hear. Two sides. Okay.
Two.
Yeah, that's
Perpendicular to the road.
Yes.
right. Perpendicular, yeah. So, and do you like the letters more spread, or do you like them closer? The third one down or the second one?
Hold on
The
for a
fourth
second.
one.
The fourth one?
I'm sorry. I'm jumping right in there on that one.
Okay, yeah.
Well, again, it's
It is the Northborough Free Library, and it would bother me terribly if it was just listed as library rather than the free library.
all right.
And I know how you've expressed your feeling about it, but it is the official name of the library. So
Okay.
I'm
So
just
that would then take away, that's going to be the size that's pictured as. It's not going to have that spread as a third one down. Okay.
right.
I just have a question about not the details of the sign, but more the overall plan of the sign. Just to clarify, so the request is for ARPA funding to get the sign set up, but then any subsequent maintenance, anything like that is the responsibility of the library?
I would think so. We haven't set up a fund yet for all municipal buildings. I think down the road, it might be, probably after my time, but there may be something that because of maintenance such. Well, what do you think, Mitch, about that?
I mean, most building maintenance now is through the DPW, but I, would want to confirm with them that they're comfortable taking ownership of the maintenance of the signs. They do now for other buildings. We don't have this type of sign. We've got the large engraved in granite or concrete or whatever it is, 20 feet up where it says Gale Library Building, but nothing like this near the ground.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we'd probably, I'll make some calls tomorrow because we have the presentation before the Board of Selectmen next Monday. And to see what would happen in the future with that as well. But flowers and things, I'm still not sure how they're going to manage that. Yes.
I have a question. You say the police and town hall, they're already signed on to get these signs?
I'm gonna be talking with them tomorrow.
Oh, they have,
Right. So, but I mean, if we've talked about it, the chief has seen it. I think what would be good is probably a letter for the select board by Monday to say, yes, you'd like it, or you don't want to participate. We still have to get pricing from the sign company. Talk
Got a
with him.
And
a
if we
couple of
wanted to
questions.
have our sign lit at night, lighted,
Yes.
you know what the
That's
cost of
critical.
that would be?
It would be lit from the ground, like spots on both sides.
Yeah.
But again, it's an additional charge to have the electrician come in to wire your building because you don't have a sign, where the police and the town hall do have the wiring already there. So that might be an add-on from the library.
I spoke briefly to Lori Connors, the planning director today, and she said that there might be an option for solar lighting for this, that she would help me look into it if that was something the board wanted to pursue. I think
Yeah,
that would be a
I don't
slight
know.
option.
I can't imagine where they put the solar panel though. It wouldn't look good on the sign.
Right.
So, but,
So, but it's something we could look into if we wanted to pursue it.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is this sign needs to be lit at night. We're open evenings, we're open when it's dark, even when we're not open evenings because of wintertime
Right.
sunset. To me, that's part of it. That we solve the whole thing at once and not do it and then figure out later how. I think we need to understand, the full cost of the project and where all the money is coming from for everything. If we need to put in some additional money that isn't coming from ARPA, and of course ARPA is winding down. We have one more meeting at the select board to decide on ARPA, then we're done. And this idea came to the select board at our most recent meeting. So that's why this is sort of a hurry up situation to decide. So that my point of view is we've got to get this lit, and we've got to get it lit to do it. On the design itself, I agree with Michelle that free library has to be a core part of this. I would want to swap the town of Northborough lettering and the seal or whatever other icon we do. That's the town seal. So, if we're using that everywhere, then that's okay. That's not a library specific seal, although the town seal happens to have the library on it, which is kind of convenient. But I would, to me, the town of Northborough in that sweep looks pretty awkward. And we are the Northborough Free Library. I would like to see it say Northborough Free Library, and it could be town of in smaller letters above Northborough, or there are probably different ways of arranging those letters and words. But I think visually that would be a lot more appealing. I really like the way that the Peasley sign is done, the one that's sort of towards the bottom right of that PDF, of that they have their logo, if you will, in the top center, and then letters simply horizontal going across like that. That looks really sharp.
Well, the problem is that we have, as we went through all the different signage and such, that's the one we picked out of the whole group as we went down to keep it all consistent. Making your decision today would then make everybody else's sign different. They'd all have to follow what you decided to do tonight. The Pisa sign, of course, is larger, and it's got waves in the background. It's a more expensive cut because you've got one more thing to do there. Maybe on Monday night. The bigger problem is to go back to design review with a new design for everybody. You won't have your pricing for Monday night. So we'd miss the ARPA funds.
So this is, just so I understand, I think you had said at Monday night's meeting, Lisa, this was $19,000 for a total for 3 signs.
I
what you
can't
saw
right
last time?
now. Yeah, I mean, I talked to the sign maker. He has to freshen those prices because that was in June when I got prices.
Yep.
And it was for the library, and the town hall will be a little bit smaller than the police station. It comes in 3 sizes. But we're looking at a 5 foot for the library, 5 foot wide and 5 foot wide for town, 6 foot for the police station.
Why
And
do they get 6 feet and we only get 5?
the building size, you're trying to, you could order a larger one, but it's, you don't want it to
Yeah,
be.
I mean, we're the most populous, if you will, non-school building in town as far as the number of visitors. I don't want to certainly don't want to compete with our friends at the police station. But it's a legitimate question of why one over the other. Yeah.
Distance, more distance from the road. The police station is further back. You've got more grass area. Your area is more shallow, probably more shallow. I don't even know if it's a town office, it's the same shallow distance. But again, we could figure out that pricing so that you could, or at least go out and tack up what 6 feet would look like versus 5 feet, and that would give you a better indication of what it would look like. So, I mean,
Another question, for the sign being lit. I totally agree with you about externally lit. That's obviously the way this is going to go. I'd want to make sure that the materials, the paint and everything else is the right type of reflective material so people can see it readily. I think you had said that the large green lettering would be engraved or embossed into the material, not just painted on. Is that right? So that should be pretty good, but the rest of it, I'd want to make sure people can see that pretty clearly.
Yeah, both the Northborough and the building name are engraved. The seal is raised and it sits out a little bit, so it gives some shadow to it. And then the street name is flat. So that, you don't need to engrave that street name. I think it takes away from the other letters, but.
I'd like to encourage that we consider using an electrical connection. I know it will cost more, but the entrance to the area in which I live depends on a solar panel, and it's awful. The technology hasn't gotten there yet. Be consistent, 5 years from now it'll probably be great, but right now it's not great.
Right. So by Monday night, I guess what I'll hopefully have a lump sum of money for the selectmen to decide. And what I can do is, do you want me to send you a piece of art that has the free library and then the sign hanging down that says entrance at Patty Lane, or do you want it to say parking entrance on Patty Lane? What would you prefer?
I think entrance on Patty Lane, because even if you're entering by foot, you have to go down to that side of the building.
Okay. All right.
And it's less to read while you're driving also.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could come up with some way of having an arrow pointing that direction with a perpendicular sign. I'm not sure if there's a way to do that.
Yeah.
With maybe on the side that is further east, something that goes across with a little uptick in an arrow as a way of saying, keep going this way. I'm not sure. I'm not a designer. I think, a good sign designer could probably come up with something that would work, because that's certainly a problem that we have. And we've always talked about it as people put 34 Main Street into the GPS, and there they are on Main Street in front of the building where there's no parking and no way to get in.
I don't know, graphically speaking, you could put an up arrow when you're going east to west, but when you're going west to east, you'd have to put a circle.
Right. You've gone too far.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's a way, and maybe there's no way to do it from that side.
Yeah, that's why I gave you that in the option of the front with the arrow pointing, but it would look weird. I mean, this arrow going up might not look weird, but the circular arrow might.
Oh yeah, no, I think they wouldn't. My opinion is you just don't put that in.
Yeah, you can't.
Just the flat board.
You could just say parking in rear, and not have an arrow. People would say, oh, how do I get to the rear? You see Patty Lane.
So does Patty Lane have a number? Like if you were to put a GPS in?
No.
That entrance?
No.
I have repeatedly tried to tell Apple Maps and Google Maps to direct people to Patty Lane when they put in this, not changing the address, but just you can sort of drag the point, and nobody ever makes that change.
Yeah, I mean, I love the building, obviously, and the stained glass that you see, and it's nice to be able to give you some recognition, because people go by and they might be at C'est La Vie going, what's the name of what's next door? So even though they don't get to necessarily look out back or what have you, I think it's a nice idea. I mean, like I said, we've talked about it since June, about bringing signage that matches through the downtown area. And I think it's going to be a nice appearance where you see it. And again, everybody's got a different point of view on their art and what they like to see in art. We tried to make a compromise to be able to be a little different than most of the towns, because a lot of towns have what Peasley has in a smaller version. And now it's starting to look very I can't think of the word. It's not custom when you're looking at it, because everybody has that same little thing on the top. Do you have a specific PMS color on the green, or do you know what you might, because when you ordered your other logo, they must have given you some sort of specs. So if you could mention what that is, to be able to, I mean, they may not do a PMS color match, but it will be as close as possible.
Yep, I can send that to you.
Okay. So
Can I ask a question? Are there any reasons we wouldn't want the sign? We kind of jumped into the design without discussing if we actually want it. So I just wanted to make sure that there was any concerns about the sign in general.
I love the idea of a sign. Those who I was on this board with maybe 5 years ago, I don't remember if it was the full board or at a buildings and grounds meeting, Chris Lindquist had proposed an electronic sign. And we had a lot of go around with that and decided for a number of reasons that wasn't a good match, but I think we were all generally interested in having a sign. It's not that people can't find us, but having something else as you're driving by, and if you don't know the library is there, you might not notice. And this would increase that awareness. And if we can come up with some way of guiding people towards the parking, I think that could help. My worry is going too fast and just saying, let's get a sign, let's get any sign, let's just do it. The sign is the first thing that a lot of people will see with our building. I want to make sure we do it right. And that's my concern is signage is critical. Pat, it sounds like you've been through some library signage processes before. It probably is not as quick as here's a sign, that's great, let's do it. Sign is just like branding. It's a big deal.
I feel as if the police department and town hall go along with this, I think that it behooves us to sort of go along with the town's branding. The signs will clearly, to me, if we have these similar signs, they will indicate this is a municipal building. They will just recognize the shape of the sign and sort of the general design of the sign as being a municipal building. And so people will have the ability, I think, to absorb that, oh, this is the library. without having to stop and say, gee, I wonder what that sign is. Is that a new store? What's going on? So I think that if the other departments say, yes, we like this, I would feel comfortable moving ahead, provided it met some of the requirements that we have for being two-sided. It should have the board at the bottom that says entrance on Patty Lane. And I'm trying to think, was there anything else?
Northborough Free Library.
Oh, and it must say free Northborough Free Library. So if we can do that, and sort of have some agreement for us and the other departments go along with that, I think that, I mean, clearly a lot of work has gone into the design of this particular design for the town to begin with. And again, there is no guarantee that we will get this. We don't know what will happen at the select board meeting on Monday, but I would like to just get a sense from the board if that will work, if we feel that this is a good enough sign. And I don't have to say, oh, it's good enough. I mean, I think it really looks quite nice. And it helps to brand us, helps to make us identifiable as a municipal building, that we can say, yes, let's go ahead with this. Send the letter to the select board with the request. And then, but like I said, we won't know until the other two departments say yes, they agree.
I do agree, Michelle, that
Yeah, go ahead.
if this is going to be town-wide, I think it is important for us to be on board, especially as we're talking today about how we're building relationships with other town communities. My only hesitation, I think, is about the lighting and making sure that this is something we actually can afford to put in. If we have some funding options, Jen, you'd probably have a better idea about that, because I do think that would be a problem for us if we didn't light that board.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Um,
Yeah, I think they all should be lit, so.
Yeah,
So
the
we're
other
kind
two
of
has
committing
wiring
to
in
that.
place. Oh, sorry.
Right.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, we're kind of committing to that project if we get this. And so we just need to be aware that that's the choice, which is fine.
but I think the other thing is we don't have to rush into the lighting part of it at this point. We have time to deal with that. That would be because putting the sign in doesn't impact the lighting of it. It can be there and then the lighting can come later.
It is possible that the wiring may be limited. I think we would need to decide, at least have an electrician look to see where we put the sign that wiring can get there.
Right. Yeah, because once you decide where you want it to, when it's centered, do you want it to the right?
Yeah.
To the left? That's another thing that you can do. They'd probably put conduit in the ground leading up to it. And I'm not sure where the electrician definitely would have to come in and see. But unfortunately, on Monday, we try to bring as much as we can bring together to have it all ready, but
Right, and I guess my feeling is that if you say we have to deal with the lighting and make these decisions about that now, we can't do that because we don't know what's involved. We won't be able to get pricing on it. We won't be able to get what we need to say, okay, go ahead, move forward on this. And so I would hate for that to be something that holds us back. Because if we say, yes, if people aren't comfortable moving forward without dealing with the lighting, then we can't get that part done. So to me, that just stops us right where we are. And we have to say, hey, nice sign. Sorry, we can't deal with it.
Yeah, obviously we won't have another board meeting before Monday night. But if Jen can get a rough price from an electrician or even from the DPW, if they can estimate a price to do it. And if Jen can find the money, and at our next meeting, we can go ahead and appropriate that money for the lighting. So it all gets done at the right time, at the same time, then moving this forward makes sense to me. I do not think we should put it in and say, we'll figure out the lighting later. We need to know that we have that sorted out before we commit to it, in my opinion.
And the signage won't go in until the spring. They're not gonna, we won't try to get it in now. It's, the ground's already getting solid. And
Yeah. What we don't know is lighting $1,000 or is it $25,000? And what are the options with that? We just don't know.
Mitch, isn't the money lost after Monday's meeting if we don't say yes?
I'm sorry, repeat again? I didn't understand the question.
What is it, ARPA funds? Aren't they lost after Monday's meeting?
Yes. So the opportunity, we have to have funds committed, which means contract signed by the end of December this month. And anything left over goes back to the federal government. So Monday night, we are going to be appropriating every last penny, no matter what. So we'll do that.
We want to receive part of that. I mean, we want to pass that up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the library has received some ARPA money for other projects, but I don't want to just choose this because we have to make a quick decision. I want us to have a really good sign and have it properly lit. And I'm a little concerned about having it thought out. Lisa, I assume you're going to be getting multiple quotes from different vendors as you have to do. And, is there opportunity within that to go back and revisit the design once you've executed a contract? I don't know. Those are, maybe questions for Monday. But those are some of the things I'm thinking about. I have one more design question. You said that the sign would be 3 feet high. Is that 3 feet to the top of the granite, or is that 3 feet to the bottom of the sign?
3 feet to the bottom of the sign.
Okay.
So you have the height. And we're talking about with the library, and you could also add another, because the sign that says entrance on Patty Lane would be a hook and eye, so that can come on and off, not be a a piece that's painted to it. But you could, in your case, we could put in one more hook and eye and perhaps supply one more board if you had certain things that I mean, I don't know how you're going to apply the letters to that board for the different things that you might have, but that would raise your signage up a little bit so that it's 3 feet from the bottom of the land up. So in your case, you'd be up just a little bit higher. I think the sign itself is 5 feet by, I think it's 26 inches.
Yeah, that's what it says in the layout, 26.19 inches.
So that's what you're looking at there. And then that gives you, again, we talked about the sign and snow and that sort of thing. So you don't really want the snow to come up. Hopefully we're not going to have that kind of weather, but you'd want to have it high enough so at least you're not going to have, be sitting in the snow. And everybody's is pretty much going to be the same. But again, once you look at the size of the building and the space that it's going to be in, it changes it a little bit, where it's like anything else. The closer you are, your letters don't have to be great big letters because you're closer to it. But if you're, so many feet away from it, the letters have to be a little bit larger. So.
Is this something that requires a vote? Or do we just simply submit the letter to the select board?
Could we do like a consensus?
I think just contingent upon the design changes as we've discussed, and the inclusion of exterior lighting.
Well, you're not doing design changes, you're just telling me which one of those design elements.
I think we have talked about some changes having Northborough immediately above. My opinion is if you have Town of Northborough and then separate Free Library, that doesn't look quite right. Northborough Free Library is our name.
I think, Mitch, the point is that the design is town-wide, and so we can't independently change that design,
That's right.
if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
this design hasn't been vetted outside of the design review committee yet. I think it honestly could use some feedback.
Well, you
I
could,
love the idea of doing signs. I really do, and having consistent signs across municipal buildings. I just want to do it right.
well,
I
you
have a
could,
question that might derail this whole thing, so I'm just going to blow up the meeting, I guess. If we, as a board, make the decision to move forward, go to the Board of Selectmen meeting, ask for the ARPA funds, and then who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, in 2 months, we're like, you know what? Forget it. It's a disaster. We don't want it. What happens from a ARPA funds, town thing? Like if we make a commitment or whatever promise ring for this sign and then decide to back out, like what logistically happens in that sense?
Once the money is appropriated, it would be a single. My vision is an expectation. Lisa, tell me if you disagree. There would be one appropriation for municipal signs. The amount of money that you brought up at the last meeting was $19,000. If it varies, it varies. There would, if we decided that we did not want that sign, we could say so. I mean, I would argue it's our building to decide what's in front of it. But the problem is the contract itself needs to be signed in like the next 3 weeks. So yeah, it's going to be specific. I would say if we change the sign later, even before installation, the granite posts and the installation and everything else about it would probably be the same, but we might need to pay for a new panel to be made.
the problem with
Um,
doing that is that you then take away the unity that we're trying to create. So that would be a moot point.
mhm.
So another wrinkle, what if same situation and we're just like, no sign? Does that mean that like, so is the ARPA approval, and I know I'm getting way off topic, specifically for 3 signs, or is it just for signs? Does this mean if we go forward and then back out, our friends at the town hall and the police department can now have 8-foot signs because they have more money? I mean, I'm just trying to explore all the
As
options
long,
here.
yeah, it's a good question. As long as that is known before December 31st, when a contract needs to be signed with a vendor.
Is
And
there
that's a
similar-
challenging question because we don't have another meeting this month.
Yeah, and it's a challenging question because for me personally, I have more questions than I have answers in this space that, I am whatever. Someone else can talk.
No, I was thinking similar. So my question is very similar to yours, Jocelyn. And like, is there, who's your 4th pick? Like, if we back out, do you have somebody else kind of queued up, ready to go? Like the fire station gets a sign, like.
Well, there are 7 municipal buildings. The 3 that we picked were buildings that are pretty much going to stay where they are. So, that's why we put you in the mix, because it's a beautiful building. It's a good location. It helps to bring these three areas together. If you didn't want to avail yourself of the potential ARPA allowance and you wanted to put a sign up, we would hope that you would go along with what the municipal sign pick was. Because if not, then we're right back to square one. When we did the application at the design review, we took all the pictures of what's up right now and nothing matches. but your schools will start to match. At one point, the schools were all the same, and then Peasley's sign became unsafe, and they had to replace it. And the sign that they put up is such a beautiful sign that the hope is that all the schools will then, when their sign does have to be replaced, would match that sign with their mascot and their name. And the same, the pillars or the granite
Why
post.
why aren't we building on that design?
Well, it's a little bit more expensive. It's a large sign, and we wouldn't have it that big. Those are very large. The pillars are, I don't know, maybe they're 8 feet high. But I wish you'd come to design review. That could have been a lot of questions that we could have done at that time when we started to do this. So, and then you're still going to have your parks and your welcome signs to town are different. And we're not looking to replace everything because it doesn't make a lot of financial sense as much as it would be nice to have everything match. I think having your parks is one, your schools is another, and your municipal buildings as another. As they blend together, it still brings a unity and a branding of town. So short of trying to get everything all done over, this was the start, because the sign in front of the town offices looks like an old hotel sign. And I do believe that they did take it from someplace when they got the frame there. So before my time, but I know that wasn't necessarily the sign there. The police station sign doesn't match. As you go down, like I said, in order to help with this downtown revitalization and branding of what we'd like the feeling of the town to look like, this was what the design was after we went through several different pieces. So,
Lisa, can I ask, is the individual cost of a sign somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000? I'm just ballparking based on.
I think it is.
Okay.
It was at that time, in
Okay.
June. So things may have come up, things may have gone down, but it's basically that's what I was working at. When I talked to the sign maker today, of course, he's not going to be back in until the weekend, to which I said I need prices before Monday to be able to know what it is that, we're talking about.
Mhm.
So,
Michelle?
So hypothetically speaking, if we didn't do this, it would be up to us if we wanted to put in a sign later down the road.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, we would have to find the money, whether it be in our regular operating budget or town meeting appropriation or friends contribution
Mhm.
or anything else.
Okay.
As with all things.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, all we are required to do tonight is to agree to the fact that we would like to go ahead and explore having a new sign that would match, that would coordinate with the other town offices.
Correct.
That's pretty much what we need to do
municipal
today.
buildings. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any reason why we couldn't agree to that?
Do we have consensus that we can agree that we would like the sign? And we will get a letter to the select board by Monday indicating what we want, what the specifics are, sort of as we discussed.
Yeah.
Jocelyn, what other, you haven't asked enough questions. What are your other questions?
I've asked enough questions.
Yes. All right. Anybody else?
What if we wanted a bigger sign so we had more space, so we could easily fit in Northborough Free Library without messing up the design?
Well, by putting Northborough in twice, it's a little bit more redundant, because you've got the town of Northborough, which is on the top of the sign. And as much I can put it in there, but again, the balance is off because you've got the disc in the center. And if you're looking at sizes, the lettering for, you have to have 2 lines. The line is, as you look at those 4 pieces, you go to the free library and you see the spacing above and below the seal. The police station and the town offices will be almost exactly the same. It'll be the same line across, which again is part of the branding. And in the case of town offices, it's just about the same width right now as the free library is. The police is a little bit more like the second or the third one down, where it's got some spacing where your library is. So I could design it for you, but what happened is the letters would be smaller.
Mhm.
The library letters would not be the same as the police, the town offices, and the balance would be off on the sign.
I don't think it would make sense to have Northborough on there twice.
I agree with that.
Okay. I just wanted
Yeah,
to check.
I'm not sure if this design intent of standardization works for us. I mean, I want there to be design similarity between them. I think that's important. We are the Northborough Free Library. That needs to be incredibly prominent.
Well, I guess for me, when I look at it, I see Town of Northborough Free Library. So it all runs together. I read it all and it all runs together. So I feel as if it's there. But I was trying to, if we went with a bigger sign, I don't want to, I want to be consistent. I personally will not vote or recommend that we move forward with this if we start to say, we want a different design. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make us say, okay, now you have to go to the other board, the other municipal departments and say, okay, we came up with this design. This is design that the libraries want, the library wants. I think it's like we go with this or we don't go with this. So I like the one at the bottom, Town of Northborough Free Library, and the board that says entrance on Patty Lane so that people know where they're going, and we say yes or no, and then send that letter. If we're going to talk about trying to change the design of it, then I would say we back out and we say no. But I think that if we're going to be, I think somebody brought it up and it's come up repeatedly tonight. We want to be more integrated in the town. We want to be part of the town. And I think we go with what we have here. And I kind of think that's the sense of the board, if I'm wrong.
Lisa used the word redundant a little while ago, and it says Town of Northborough, and it says Free Library. Obviously, this is not the Shrewsbury Free Library. This is the Northborough Free Library. I mean, you'd have to be a moron to look at the sign and not understand what it was actually saying.
Okay.
Or English isn't your first language. I'm always going to throw an option in there, Jim.
Well, I think if English weren't your first language,
then you should come to the
Adding Northborough
library and you can learn.
wouldn't do anything if
All right.
they weren't your
I've
first
been up.
language.
I've been up for too long.
All right.
I can speak 3 or 4 languages, and I'm telling you, it wouldn't make any difference.
Okay. Well, I admire your multilingual abilities. However, relative to the sign, is the board predominantly in favor of the option, the fourth option with the entrance on Patty Lane board at the bottom? I believe I see more heads nodding.
And double-sided, correct.
And double-sided so that it's and set up perpendicular to the library.
Mhm.
Thank you for.
Yeah.
I have it written right here, two-sided.
Yeah, I just want to make absolutely sure that we know before this is committed to that we will have lighting. To me, that's critical. And I'm perfectly fine pushing that on Jen to just call Sean and say, hey, how much do you think it'll cost to run the lighting? And then you say, that's good. Then you send the letter. And if he comes back and
Okay.
says, I don't know how we'll afford that possibly, then I don't think we should go ahead with a sign if it's not going to be lit. I really don't. The other two will be lit.
They will be lit, and they are, because they already have lighting.
Right. They already
So
have the wiring.
the
I just
wiring
want to
is
make
there.
sure absolutely clear that like if I call them and they give me an off the cuff estimate, that they're not being held to it. If
Right.
then when we get an
Right.
electrician, it's a different price. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to set them up.
Right. Right. No, I trust our DPW to give you a reasonable enough estimate for you to make that call.
Okay. What to you as a board is considered reasonable? Because I do not want to assume that my definition of reasonable is the same.
I think the bigger question is, do we have money for it somewhere, right? If it's something that, you know, we have in an account or friends or whatever. But for me, like, you know,
Can
That's
I ask for a
that's
suggestion?
part of that was part of why I want to keep the lighting separate from this, because we don't have time as a board to find that out. We don't have time to explore any of the lighting options. I mean, it's sort of straightforward, but I think that there may be other issues related to the lighting of the sign. And I would rather not have Jen have to make herself crazy to try and get prices, only for us to turn around and say, oh, no, that's great. We can't do that. We don't have, or try to commit us to use funds that we will later on say, oh, that, this is a mistake. We shouldn't be doing this. I would rather be able to take time to thoughtfully and carefully look into what the cost is for that and figure out how we do it, because it already isn't going to be part of the ARPA money. So that shouldn't be part of the
Well,
decision.
it could be
Moving forward with the sign.
Yeah. It is feasible for it to be if there was a price, if we knew what the price was, that could be in the request that Lisa makes to the select board.
May I offer a suggestion? Because I have no idea how much electrical connections to signs would be. But if the electrical portion costs more than the sign itself, then it may
I
be.
actually had the same thought, Pat. Yeah.
That's my fear. And that's what I
And it could.
Yeah,
but I think that there may be other options that we can look into.
most certainly.
And I would rather approach that later. But
we have demonstrated over the years that we have the ability to reach out to our fellow citizens with fundraising, and they have responded remarkably well over the years. And I'm quite certain that we could find the discretionary money somewhere to fund the lighting. So I agree with Michelle that it ought to be, maybe tonight we ought to say, we want to go ahead with the sign. We also want to go ahead with the lighting, but they're basically two separate projects.
Yeah.
But we're committed to both.
I
I
agree.
think that makes me feel more comfortable because I honestly, my sense is that Sean and Scott would probably want to get an electrician out to actually look at the work rather than just yell numbers at me. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they can, right?
My
But, like, would
worry
they
is
be numbers?
my worry is committing to a sign that we can't electrify, that we can't light.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, and I my guess is that's fine. I don't know what's buried under our front lawn.
Yeah.
We'll
I
find
really
out
don't.
though.
Yeah.
okay. So I feel as if maybe we've gotten to the agreement that we're going to send something to Lisa that says, yes, we want to sign like this. If we get a number that says the number for the electrical is less than the cost of the sign itself, we include that number so that if it's possible to get that from ARPA funds, then we can do that. And if it's not, we take that on as a separate issue down the road when we have time to really look into it and figure out what it is, what has to
Yeah,
happen, how much.
I just want to have that part done prior to installation in the spring. And that
Oh.
could, we have time to do that.
Okie dokie, we have time.
I mean, right now it's just getting the funding. You know, to go
Yeah.
Building
forward.
and Grounds Committee can take that on as a special project.
All righty, that's why we have a building and grounds committee. Thanks for that, Jim. Look forward to meeting with you, Mitch. We are the building and grounds committee.
Yes.
Okay. So I think we've gotten there. So we can say that we're gonna get the
Go ahead.
information, get that off to Lisa. And we will deal with lighting, how we deal with it.
Okay.
If we can get the number in, then we do it. Are we
Uh,
good?
Michelle, would you like me to draft something for you to review? And then, like, you could sign off on it, or do you just want me to send?
Well, if you can run it by me first, I
Yeah,
would appreciate that. And then we can move forward.
perfect.
But I think that's it. Lisa, do you feel comfortable with what we said?
Yes, yes. If you'd like, I can create the little free library mock-up. So you can add it with what you want. I'll put the entrance on Patty Lane. And
Okay.
then you can just, mark up the color. You don't have to worry about the real specifics of the PMS right now. It's just really the idea of you're going to be one of the three that these signs are going to be starting. And hopefully everybody will come to town.
And I said, oh, what a great place. I want to live there. All right, cool.
Thank you very
Well-
much. Appreciate it, and all the thoughtful questions and considerations.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you again for working through the weekend to put all this together for us.
All right, you have nice holidays. If I don't talk to you
You
before.
too.
Same to you.
Thank you.
I will talk to you before the holidays, Lisa.
Yes, you will.
See you Monday.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye now.
All right. Having concluded that bit of business, the next meeting will be on January 14th, 2025 at 7 p.m. and it will be remote. I think I said all the right words. Is there any other business that may come before the board at this time?
Very quickly, we have a Grinch lookalike contest on December 24th. I will send more information if you'd like, but come be a Grinch.
I was
And
gonna
thank
say,
you
who are
so
you looking
much.
at when you say that? Who are you already thinking of?
Right at Jocelyn.
I know my role.
And just
Oh.
thank you again, honestly, I took copious notes and I have a million different ideas and a million different conversations that I want to have with people. So thank you for your input tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you all. I know this is really quite out of the ordinary and I've kept you up past your bedtime. I'm certainly up past my bedtime. So I appreciate the fact that you were willing to just get it done. So all that being said, do I have a
I
motion?
move we adjourn.
Second. Aye.
I
Jocelyn,
move, that was me moving. I moved,
Jocelyn
Jim.
moved,
Jocelyn,
and
I
Mitch
seconded.
Mitch,
seconded. All right, quick roll call. All those in favor, Brittany,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Pat,
Pat Fonce, aye.
Jim,
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn,
Jocelyn McKellany, aye.
Beth,
Bat Thomas, you betcha, aye.
Richard Tucker. You have to say yes, Richard. Come on.
Are you
Froze.
sure?
Is he frozen?
Oh, I think he's frozen.
Oh, no.
No, Richard,
Richard Tucker, aye.
Oh,
thank you. He's just making us wait. Misha Uehel also says aye. The meeting is adjourned at 9:27 p.m. Good night, Pat. I mean, good night.
Night.
Good night,
Good night,
Kate.
Kate.